Russia is breaking, Ukraine strikes harder, precision crisis returns, Russian economists sound the alarm, the Kremlin can't hide it, the system is running out of money, Putin bleeds billions, war costs split out of control, sanctions and battlefield losses are draining Russia fast, Ukraine's FP2 strike drone, the Kremlin's new nightmare, fast, precise and now carrying an aerial bomb, FP2 hits deep into Russian rear. This is Ukraine Today with Doroslava Kolesnikova. Stay with us. Russia's pension crisis returns, economists sound the alarm. The pension question is back in Russia, and this time the Kremlin isn't even trying to hide the problem. Experts from the Russian Academy of Science are speaking openly. The system is collapsing, money is running out, and the government has no plan. How bad is the crisis? Who will pay the price? All the key details coming up.
Pensions are being discussed again in Russia, this time without trying to pretend that everything is under control. Economists from the Russian Academy of Sciences are speaking frankly. In 20 years, the country will need a new pension reform. Not because someone wants it, but because otherwise the system simply won't survive.
So an easy life is not in store for you, and we'll be asking much more strictly.
There will be fewer working-age people and more pensioners. This means one thing: the current model won't be able to support those who retire in the 2040s. And even now, those who live on a pension today are already feeling it.
Honestly, if it weren't for my children, I would have starved to death. I'm telling you the truth.
They won't let you do anything. Anyone who tries to start their own business will be shut down quickly. That's how our government knows how to do things.
Russian pensioners are far from the image of a peaceful old age. It's waiting in line at clinics, saving on medicine, buying bags of pasta on sale, and utility bills that get more noticeable every year than any promised indexation.
Potatoes. It's just a disaster. I don't even allow myself to buy cabbage unless it's absolutely necessary. And potatoes now, that's a real problem.
Chicken, damn, that's just a whole other story. Chicken meat already, and don't even get me started on turkey. And fish is just crazy, 500 and up. I'm outraged about the price of potatoes. Why are potatoes so expensive?
Some people work their garden plots just to get through the summer without extra expenses. Some people keep working as long as they have the strength because a single pension is only enough for the bare essentials. And even then, not always. In big cities, it's still bearable, but in the regions, it's almost impossible.
To them, we're just plain cattle, nothing more.
Well, at least they're alive. The main thing is that they have enough. And the people? What about the people? The people will survive even worse than this. A deep bow to them.
There are a lot of us. How to put it, I'm among the low income, myself included. My pension is 14,000 rubles. I'm not the only one like this. There are a lot of people like that. Well, the situation is pretty tough. I do want to work. Let's hope for Putin that he'll keep his promise to raise pensions for retirees.
Now, though, experts say that if nothing changes, things will only get worse. Right now, the balance is maintained through budget injections and subsidies that cover the deficit of the pension fund. But as the population ages, this deficit will only continue to grow. Moreover, starting January 1st, 2026, the value-added tax, VAT, in Russia will be increased. The rate will rise from 20% to 22%. This means that everything an ordinary person buys, food, goods, services, will become more expensive.
The funniest thing is that officials even claim that the amendments submitted to the government will benefit the economy, because they will supposedly allow the Bank of Russia to lower the key interest rate. First and foremost, expecting that any tax increase could, in principle, put the economy on a higher growth trajectory is simply foolish.
The increased retirement age only postponed the problem, it didn't solve it. Russia is gradually approaching a point where the choices will become tougher. Either reduce spending, raise the retirement age again, or change the very principle of how pensions are calculated. Each option will be less appealing to someone than the others. The irony is that the poverty of today's Russian pensioners is not an exception of the system, but its most honest reflection. Those who are young now may receive even more meager payments in the future. Life will not get easier on its own. The forecasts do not promise gradual improvement. They speak of increasing burdens, a shrinking workforce, and a growing proportion of elderly people. And this is a direct path to the social system becoming much more strained.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now. Putin bleeds billions, Kremlin loses spiral out of control. Kremlin can no longer hide it. Russia's economy is cracking under the weight of sanctions, war expenses, and the collapse of key industries. Even Russian economists admit the truth: the system is sinking fast. How long can Moscow survive this financial free wall? Who will pay the price next?
Putin is currently losing an estimated billions.
I seriously doubt that I can add anything particularly new or insightful here at this moment.
Russia's shadow fleet has entered a phase of mass decommissioning. Aging tankers are being forced to sell at a discount and in the shadows. More and more old Russian tankers are reaching the end of their service life and need to be scrapped. As a result, floating scrap metal turns into real scrap, undermining the capabilities of the shadow fleet, forcing them to sell vessels falling under sanctions at a discount and look for ways to offset the losses.
The moment when Russian oil and liquefied gas are sold to end consumers is being very strictly monitored by the American side. In addition, the American side has stated that if the Russian Federation refuses to come to the negotiating table, they will impose secondary sanctions against the end consumers of Russian energy resources. This is a very serious blow to the Russian economy.
The average age of ships in the shadow fleet is 20 years. Moreover, 60% of the vessels are even older.
At the moment, the Russian side is forced to admit that the expenditure side of the Russian budget has increased by almost 3.5% of GDP. And this is evidence that there is practically no money left in the Russian Federation's treasury. Accordingly, the ability to replenish funds through the shadow fleet's operations is now limited to a minimum.
This month, dismantling began in a Turkish port of the tanker Eagle Sea, which became known after an incident in the Gulf of Finland. A year ago, the vessel damaged several underwater cables with its anchor, and Finnish authorities discovered suspicious equipment on board.
The Russian Federation is forced to sell oil at a 40% discount. In other words, this clearly demonstrates that even the most discerning end consumers clearly understand and fully comprehend the significant risks associated with the potential for severe sanctions from key American partners. And the further, more aggressive actions of the Russian Federation, specifically lowering the global price of crude oil, clearly indicate that they are essentially being compelled and forced to significantly dump prices in order to retain at least a certain, albeit diminishing, number of loyal consumers of their Russian energy resources.
Many ships in the shadow fleet have already exceeded their service life, so these rusty tubs won't last long before they have to be decommissioned. In 2024, 409 ships were officially scrapped.
The number of decommissioned ships will continue to increase. This significant pressure is also continuing to be exerted on other countries that currently provide their flags to Russian ships. It should also be noted that EU countries have imposed additional sanctions against the shadow fleet of the Russian Federation, thereby minimizing the opportunities to use these loopholes to replenish the Russian budget.
Russian tax revenues from oil sales are at their lowest since the start of the war. Sanctions are hitting Russia hard, and there will be even more of them.
Losses from United States sanctions have already reached approximately $100 billion so far. This is a very serious blow to the capabilities of the Russian economy and, accordingly, to the Russian government's ability to finance further active military operations in Ukraine.
In October, New Zealand also imposed sanctions against 65 additional vessels. And recently, Canada also expanded its own restrictions. Another 100 vessels from the Russian shadow fleet were added to the list.
Ukraine's new FP2 strike drone, Russia's worst nightmare, returns. The nightmare of 2022 is back. That's how Russian analysts describe Ukraine's new FP2 strike drone, the weapon that keeps the Kremlin awake at night. The FP2 hits deep into Russian rear position with precision, and now it can even carry an adapted aerial bomb as its warhead. Fast, cheap and deadly, it's becoming one of Ukrainians' most effective tools on the battlefield. It is a drone that will change the course of the war once again.
Short musical cue at the beginning of the 2022 speech.
The Russian Federation's worst nightmare, or rather the reason it can't sleep. The new Ukrainian strike drone, FP2. 4-second pause. The FP2 is used for strikes on Russian rear positions, and it can also carry an adapted aerial bomb as its warhead.
And the FP2 drone, it's specifically designed for strikes with a penetrating warhead. It's not soft like regular drones, right? Instead, its warhead is a 100 kilogram FAB 100 bomb with the tail section removed. That's it. So this drone can hit targets quite effectively because the FAB 100 is, for example, the main bomb from World War II, the most widely used bomb. That's it. Then at the same time, it can strike targets with high precision.
The use of drones is confirmed both by the occupiers and by the Ukrainian military themselves, who show them in action against the enemy across the Donbass. 4-second pause. The OFAB marking indicates that the munition is a high explosive fragmentation type, designed to strike unprotected and lightly protected targets.
The FP2 can strike both stationary targets and, in certain cases, moving targets as well. That's right. And this is a very important point because, for example, it allows you to hit those same Iskander missile launchers as they move into position.
The Ukrainian company Firepoint has introduced the FP2 strike drone in the middle strike class. It replicates the design of the long-range FP1 drone, which is used to strike targets in the rear of the Russian army.
This is, so to speak, a modernization of the long-range FP1 drone, which has a range of up to 1,400 kilometers. The FP2 has retained the same design, but is smaller in size. Apparently, it has a shorter wingspan, and its range is limited to 200 kilometers. This is where the bulk of the army and front-level warehouses and logistics centers are located. That's it. That's why this strike zone is very important.
The manufacturers offer the system both with a classic stationary launcher and a mobile version for rapid deployment disguised as a regular army truck.
You can drive up as close as possible, say 10 kilometers from the front line, quickly launch and quickly leave the strike zone.
It is noted that the relative cheapness and availability of the drone, combined with its heavy warhead, allows Ukraine to a certain extent to compensate for the shortage of high-precision missile weaponry.
The FP2 can be considered a high-precision munition. Why? It has a high-resolution camera carefully installed and, let's say, approximately 10 kilometers from the active front line. A critical relay is strategically suspended. And this drone flies like an FPV. That is, it has a camera on board and strikes the target precisely. In other words, the operator sees the target before striking it.
Experts point out that due to their low flight altitude and sheer numbers, drones can bypass and overwhelm the Russian army's air defense systems, which in certain situations can be more effective than strikes from HIMARS missile systems.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you believe the truth must be louder than Kremlin lies, like, share and subscribe. Your support keeps us on the information front line. Stay strong, stay informed and stay with Ukraine.